Humble our spirits, raise our hands to the heavens. Kuma Yahuwah, ve'afusu yiveaka, ve'nusu misanaka mipanaka. Kuma Yahuwah, ve'afusu yiveaka, ve'nusu misanaka mipanaka. Kuma Yahuwah, ve'afusu yiveaka, ve'nusu misanaka mipanaka. Rise up, Yah, and let thine enemies be scattered, and let them that hate thee flee before thee. Rise up, Yah, and let thine enemies be scattered, and let them that hate thee flee before thee. Rise up, Yah, and let thine enemies be scattered, and let them that hate thee flee before thee. Nihilel Yah, Nihilel Yah, Nihilel Yah, Yah-kai, Yah-kai, Yah-kai. Hallelujah. 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 Well, we have a special guest tonight who's going to talk about repatriation. We have all the way from Ghana, Western in Eden, Dr. Ohr Ben Israel in our presence. Let's give him a warm DC welcome. Hallelujah. Ohr keeps giving me the thumb. I have to stay at the podium. Okay, where am I? Oh, introduce myself. Shalom. I am Ak Garaya Manavala, Washington, D.C. jurisdiction. Welcome to the Washington, D.C. jurisdiction. Hallelujah. Again, Dr. Ohr Ben Israel, I'm going to just read a little bit of his incredible bio. Again, he's a member of the Distinguished Order of the Crown Brothers, which is a third-level leadership position in the government of the Kingdom of Yah, the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem. Professional credits include he's Executive Director of Edenic World Health Resort in Cape Coast, Ghana, specialist in integrative medicine and holistic healing. He's also founder of the Edenic World Restoration Foundation. This is a nonprofit charity organization aimed at saving the planet through planting and cultivating sound ecological and economic development that is sustainable. He is also founder of the Edenic World Tourism. This is an West African travel and tourism company which specializes in historical, health, business, and leisure tourism services worldwide. So we have an international guest with us, y'all. Some of his community credits are he's representative of the Ministry of the Future in Ghana. This is a delegate, he's a delegate for the Diaspora Coalition of Ghana and a founding member of the Bureau of African Diaspora Affairs of Ghana. Also, he holds educational degrees. He's a doctor in preventive health care and regenerative healing, and a Bachelor of Natural Science in Divine Regenerative Nutrition, School of the Prophets Institute at Jerusalem, Eastward in Eden, in Dimona, Israel, northeastern Africa. He has a Bachelor of Science in Political Science from the University of Kentucky. Some of the credits or certificates to his credit include he holds a Certificate of Holistic Health Consultant, a colon hydrotherapist, a massage and iridology specialist. Personally, he's married. He has a daughter who's here in the States. His daughter is a third-year student at Howard University. So, hey, let's clap up for that. She's actually graduated. So, you gave me an old. She's graduating. Okay, graduating from Howard University. This year?
This coming May.
This coming May. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. So, I mean, this is just truly an honor and a pleasure to have Dr. Ohr Ben Israel in our presence. And I don't even want to hold the main speaker anymore. So without further ado, I bring to you Dr. Ohr Ben Israel Ben Nasik Ram. Sleek out. Hallelujah.
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 Hallelujah. Kodem ko hakivoli arunenu hamashiach ko nisikav sarav atarim beko kasidav eloshe karovim eloshe rikokim ani mivrek ekim Shabbat shalom. Kak Sameach. More than Masinka. Hallelujah. And we're coming together today. I'm quite excited to be here and so thankful to have been invited by the Washington, D.C. jurisdiction and to be hosted here by Galbraith Zion AME Church here in D.C. to come and share a few words with you today, a testimony today coming from westward in Eden, Ghana, here on our morning of a celebration that's coming up this evening for the New Year, the Hebraic New Year. And so we're all happy and excited about the season, and certainly it's a great honor and pleasure to be here in your midst again to share what it is that we have to share today. So hallelujah. And as the brother was talking, he was sharing a little bit about my background as I work in Ghana at our health facility that we've established there as an alternative medicine practitioner in Ghana. And certainly to be able to come out in this season and speak about what Ghana is doing with regard to the year of return, which many of you have heard about. And to speak about it, having been one that's been there in Ghana now for about 9 years, and my experience there has been one that's truly been a blessing, one that I would say that I would have to say that it was not something that I had planned in my future to be in Ghana, but it was something that through my being guided by the Holy One of Israel, him directing all of our paths, you never know where it is that you'll end up at any given time. But now in Ghana, having been assigned there in 2009 by our anointed spiritual leader, Ben Ami, to go and work and serve at our institution there of redemptive healing, it's been a great pleasure and a great honor. Things have unfolded and transpired in my time there that I would have never dreamed. And certainly as he was sitting here just reading down the list, I was sitting here going, really? Me? Because sometimes things that do happen and unfold in your life, especially when they're prophetic, and we're going to talk about the prophetic nature of, as we observe the year of return, we want to look at how is this prophetic, Certainly at times when things have unfolded in past times with our forefathers, when things were unfolding in their lives, and I'm speaking this as it relates to all of you too, at those times that the things were unfolding that actually got written down in the scriptures and they were prophetic, when you were living through it, you had no idea really. And our forefathers, when we look at our forefathers like Abraham, I'm sure when, the Holy One of Israel began talking to him and sharing with him what was going to take place with his seed down the road. And as he had asked him to get up and move from Ur of the Chaldees, and where he was sending him to, he didn't know where he was going. But at the end of the day, all of this turned out to be prophetic. As we look at the Abrahamic covenant and we look at what's unfolding as a portion of that Abrahamic covenant that talked about his seed going into captivity for 400 years. I'm sure that he had no idea how that was fully going to unfold, but here we are today living it. You understand? So it's certainly a great and powerful thing for us to be here and share and talk about what's happening in Ghana, because as it unfolds, it's almost awe-inspiring. I mean, it's almost to some degree unbelievable as we really begin to see how things are unfolding from a standpoint of divine providence. So I want to move right on in to our presentation as we talk about the year of return, all right? And I just mentioned the Abrahamic covenant, okay? And I'll just read from verses 13 and 14, and it reads, "And he said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a sojourner in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward they shall come out with great substance. And this is the scriptural reference that a lot of people are tuning into as we look and we see Ghana declaring 2019 as a year of return, because we all know how that came into existence as we look at how the U.S. president recently signed the bill H.R. 1242, which acknowledges the 400-year period that those who came to America from Africa as slaves were first recorded as they landed in Jamestown. And then as we come to 2019, it's a 400-year period. All right? Yeah. So as we look at that from the standpoint of history, we're also looking at the Abrahamic covenant from the standpoint of prophecy. And as we also talk from the prophetic standpoint, I want to read from Deuteronomy 28th chapter, for those of us who haven't been familiarized with that, as we continue to speak prophetically, all right? Verse 41 and 68, and they read on this wise. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. And for those of you who are familiar, you know that this is the children of Israel that it's talking about, all right? During the time of Moses, and he's explaining to the children of Israel at that time, after they've been brought out of Egypt and being given the law and then instructed by the Holy One of Israel to keep the law and commandments given to them, right? But there was a portion that said if you do that, you'll be blessed. And then there was another portion that said if you don't do that, you're going to be cursed. All right? And this is speaking about those curses. Verse 68. And the Lord, Yah, shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. And Egypt, being spoken of metaphorically right there, is talking about a land or a place of bondage, okay? We went into captivity the first time as the children of Israel into physical Egypt, but this was speaking prophetically. Again, as we talk prophetically, Egypt represented a place of bondage. By the way whereof I spoke unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again, and there you shall be sold unto your enemies for male and female slaves, and no man shall buy you. All right? So it speaks about the captivity. All right? Thousands of years before it would unfold, it spoke about it, you know, and it actually unfolded in a real way for all of us who know that our ancestors arrived here in the bottom of ships as slaves on the shores of America. So again, the first ones landed in Jamestown, and that was in 1619, Jamestown, Virginia. And many of the slaves that were taken into the Western Hemisphere, most were taken in South America, Central America, but only less than around 5% were taken to the Americas, okay? And along the west coast of Africa, where those slaves were being taken from, they've recorded there are about 66 slave fortifications that's been recognized that exist there that were heavily active during the slave trade. And where we are in Ghana, there was a concentration of 44 out of that 66 slave fortifications in that location. Wow. And at the height of the slave trade, the two slave fortifications that are right there in the Cape Coast area, you have the Cape Coast slave dungeon, you have the Elmina slave dungeon, both there. You know, the oldest one and the most busiest one that was active during the height of the slave trade, located right there in Cape Coast. So it was a center for this slave trade activity, okay? So Ghanaians, it was a center of horror for us as a people. Want to get into a little bit about who Ghanaians are, all right? Want us to take a look at a small video, because we talk about Ghanaians. We want to get into a little bit of background of who they are. okay, when we say Ghanaians. Okay. This is Dr. Maulana, who is a university professor at the University of Legon in Accra, Ghana. And he's talking about the people of Ghana, and he's talking about where they come from, all right? He's talking about some of the things they've done in their history. He's pointing to the pyramids, all right, that exist in Egypt. And as it goes along, he began to show that they migrated down from that part of northeastern Africa, all right? And he'll mention many of the tribes, the various tribes that are there in Ghana. And some of them, you have the Akan people, and which make up the Ashanti tribe, the Fanti tribe. And then you have the Gan, who are located in greater Accra area, right? Then you have the Ewe that are in the Volta region, all right? He talks about them. And he talks about how they all migrated down from northeast Africa. Sometimes he mentions Egypt or ancient Akana. And then at other times he mentions Israel. And he says, he speaks interchangeably about the two, Israel and Egypt. And when I've had the opportunity to talk to our brothers and sisters from the Gan tribe, they do the same thing. They also interchange quite frequently between Israel and Egypt, you know, talking about where they come from. But we know our history as a people, that we were in Egypt as Israelites for a period of time. You know, when Moses brought the children of Israel out of Egypt, we had been there for hundreds of years. So they used that. In fact, I went and I was blessed to actually meet with the head of the Ghan community there now in Accra. He's a spiritual advisor there who's over the Ghan family. And he actually said officially to me in an official meeting and setting that they come from Israel. All right? Yes.
I don't think everybody heard that.
Yeah. He told me in that meeting, you know, and not only him, but all those that were there. And this is something I have been hearing from members of the Ghan tribe there in Ghana over and over, that they come from Israel. But I wanted to go and sit with them officially and actually find out officially what the position is. And he said that they are from Israel. And he talked about a place very near the Nile River.
We are not aware in our educational background of what our, let's say, Ghanaian forebears and generally African forebears knew about astronomy. Don't play the African cheat. The Europeans did not create
Well, it's coming, HDMI is creating signal out of here, so. I want to make sure.
We are not aware in our educational background of what our, let's say, Ghanaian forebears and generally African forebears knew about astronomy. Don't play the African cheat. The Europeans did not create astronomy. The Europeans did not create the laws of physics and quantum mathematics. The edifices that we have on earth will bear witness and evidence that what I'm telling you is the truth. When I say edifice, I'm talking about like the alignment of Khufu's pyramid, other edifices that we have put up that are aligned with the celestial bodies in the universe. So what I'm saying, I'm making a case here is this. How did, you know, we asked this question once before. How did our forebears, Ghanaians, know to come to this sector of Africa and declare that this would be the new home?
They use the sun.
They used the sun. They used the sun. And you cannot use the sun unless you have knowledge of the sun from a celestial in the cosmos. So simply meaning is that Ghanaians and other African ethnic groups of antiquity knew about the laws of the universe, and they knew that those laws govern our behavior on earth. And they knew the sun, S-U-N, not S-O-N, the Son of God, would guide them to the New Jerusalem. The New Jerusalem, because our forebears were booted out of the land called Canaan or Canaan, ancient Israel. It was not a voluntary exodus. It was a forced exodus by invading Indo-Aryan white tribes coming out of the Caucasus Mountains. Now what I'm saying is, the long and the short of that was this. When they left Canaan.
So the point was, he's talking about how they migrated down out of Israel in the ancient name that they refer to as ancient Canaan, right? Or Canaan. Let's listen to another portion.
There are volumes of information about the migration of the ancient Egyptians when Egypt fell. Egypt fell in 525 BC. I would like to take a moment here, if I may, to go to this map. Here, first of all, I want to clarify. I'm using some of the works of Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop, the late, great Dr. Diop. The Ghanaian researchers, the late J.B. Dankwa. The late J.B. Dankwa, in his book, The Arkans, page 8, he showed that the Arkans came from the Great Lakes area, which is called Kush, and they migrated into the Nile Valley. We have Kwajo Asante. He also talks about the Ashanti coming out of Egypt. Then we have Charles Mamata of the Airways, showing that the Airways were in Israel. We have also the works showing that the Adambe were in. It goes back about 6,000 years ago. And if we look, you find that the Arkans, Airway, Adambe, and the Dagumba. But there's evidence to show they call Keta in Haiti. There's a case of Airway name in antiquity of this particular region. His name, by the Greeks, they call him Amenophis, but the Airway name is Amenopo, and that was in around 1700s before Christ. And you see the migration here. When Egypt fell in 525 BC, where did the ancient Egyptians go? They fled southward, and they knew about the interior of Africa because that's where they came from. The first empire after the fall of ancient Egypt, we witnessed Old Ghana as early as 50 BC. The Romans under General Septimus Flaccus in 50 BC under Caesar's request was trying to search for the Niger Basin. They found Old Ghana. Old Ghana reigned from 50 BC to 1076 AD. Some of the ethnic groups that were in Old Ghana were the Arkans, were the Ga Adambe, were the Airways. Now, there were Yorubas and Nigerian groups there, but for this particular purpose I'm illustrating, I won't mention those groups, but they were there. Then after Old Ghana was burned to the ground in 1076 AD, excuse me, let me highlight, the Black Moors that history has written about that brought the Europeans out of darkness in 711 AD, they came out of the Renaissance and the empire of Old Ghana, marching into southern Europe, Spain, Portugal, and France, occupying that area. But the Arabs came after the Black Moors and became the real benefactors of the good works that the Black Moors did in that area. So after Old Ghana fell, our forebears went deeper toward the south, and they established Old Mali. That was in 1230 AD until about 1390. The Moroccans, Arabs, and Europeans came again out of jealousy, burned Timbuktu and Old Mali Empire to ground. Then from there, our forebears went deeper and they established Songhai from 1464 to 1592. The capital city was Guinea. One of the oldest mosques in the world, was in the Black world at that time, was housed in this particular area. The Arabs came again through Morocco and with the Europeans with rifles and muskets, and they burned it to the ground. So from there, our forebears fled deep into the forest, and it was from there we began to set up Iliefe, Oyo, Dahomey, Ashanti kingdoms, you're getting into the area of about the 1700s. Let me mark one thing. When Don Diego Azambuja came to Efutu and Shama, they logged in their diary that the Akans were still coming down from old Ghana and old Mali through the Kong Mountains of Cote d'Ivoire. So we know that the Akans, and one of the first groups of the Akans who came down from that area were the Fanti, and they settled around Makasini. You understand me? So the ethnography shows the connection between sub-Saharan ethnic groups and those that were in ancient Egypt. As far south as Zimbabwe, the Metebele and the Shoshona, Robert Mugabe's ethnic group, they also have a folklore about the long march down into the area. Let me mention one other thing. The Obe Chocho of the airways, Obe coming from Chocho, the great land. You know the Obe Chocho festival. It highlights the fact of the Mepe people coming out of Egypt down into the South region. So the evidence is clear.
And that was Dr. Maulana again, who was also professor at the University of Legon in Accra, also the founding member of Ministry of the Future, which was the organization that was instrumental in us receiving citizenship back in 2016. But as he's speaking, he's talking about the different migrations that happened with the people there in Ghana. And you got to remember our history going back. We had 3 major migrations that took place out of the land. When you go all the way back during Egypt, there were several of those that migrated during the time of Moses. Then you go during the time of the Assyrian captivity. We were taken into different parts of the world at that time. And then during the time that the Romans came, in around 70 AD, the final expulsion of our people out of the land then. And all of that was traumatic. You have to understand, it wasn't just like they just decided to get up and move, but there were things that were going on in our history that was very harsh for us to have to deal with, to the extent that we had to be relocated or we were pushed out as a result of war, these type of things. And so all of this was traumatic. And it's something that a lot of people haven't understood about having to migrate. Migration, especially from one place to another, when you're migrating from one place and you're going to a place that you don't have anyone there, you know, to assist and help you, or it's a place that you're migrating to, you don't know anyone, there's no one to assist you, what happens is that can be a traumatic experience as well. You know, that can be very difficult. And so one of the side effects of trauma like this is that it causes you to what? Tend to want to forget certain things that you associate with the trauma that you go through. You know, and so in all of these different migrations and the different traumatic experiences, you know, you got to understand there are certain conditions like dissociative disorder, you know, or psychogenic amnesia. And these are effects of traumatic experiences, and again, some that are directly related to migrations into places unknown. And this is the history of our people. I want to share a testimony from a couple of Ghanaian historians. And this brother here is Arthur Elia, and he's a Ghanaian. He's not actually a Ghan, he's a Ashanti, but after him, you hear one of the Ghanaian historians give a testimony as they, again, speak about their journey.
So the similar cultural practices, as I have mentioned earlier, indicate the fact that we trace the source of our culture all the way back into the scriptures. So today, if somebody were to ask you, who are the people of the Bible, you have to give an answer.
When you talk of the beginning of this world, you have to go back to Nubia, Egypt, where everybody has accepted that civilization from religion, philosophy, astronomy, science, culture has originated in the ancient Egyptian tongue, referring to the beginning of this world. It was also a Ga tongue as Jene Shishin. The term Jene Shishin meaning the beginning of the world. Jene Shishin, as the Greeks who have documented that they were taught by the Nubians of the Nile Valley in Egypt corrupted the term to be Genesis. This Genesis today from our King James Version refer to the term Genesis, speaking of the beginning of this world. For we, the Ghanaian people, our history dates back some thousands of years back, which traces our ancestry to the Nile rivers. The word term Ga itself means first, oldest or eldest. And the Ga word is connected with the name Ganumbi. In the Ga language, the Gans have referred to water as Nu. And Bi means children. So the word Numbi, meaning the children out of waters, water children, that name was what was later derived for the word Nubian, as Nubians. And we know that in ancient history, from the facts of civilization, the Nubians are known to be the first known existing race on this planet. And for the Ghanaian people, we have a term that we used to say that meaning we have come from afar. And our ancestors have settled along the Nile River, which later became Nazareth.
And so, yes, as you can hear him testifying about the journey that they made coming out of Egypt. But again, you know, these type of migrations, especially after things that may be going on around you that can be traumatic, can definitely cause, you know, us to experience symptoms of trauma. You know, and again, from there, we look at the fact that what are the things that you could possibly begin to lose track of, you know? One could be where you come from, who you are, why this is happening to you. And these are some of the things that over time our people have forgotten. Not totally, but, you know, in different areas, different individuals forget different things. And I had read an article recently about West African religions. And you go in and you see what the article was saying. It was talking about some of the different tribes from Nigeria and Ghana as well, all believe from a traditional standpoint in a creator being, supreme creator being. But as you go in, they talk about the fact that traditionally most of the tribes, and it was a consensus with practically all of them, and it was saying that though they all believe in a creator being, the fact is that most of them don't have any shrines or temples built dedicated to the creator, the supreme creator. But most of the tribes deal with what you call fetish gods or lesser gods, all right? And then when you get into understanding why that is, they'll tell you that they can't communicate with him anymore. But what they have forgotten is why they can't communicate with him anymore, because you asked the different tribes and they will give you different reasons as to why the creator stopped communicating with them. But, you know, we look back in our history and we understand when we read in the book of Amos and we read about the famine when it said that know for a surety that there'll be a famine, not a famine of bread or water, but what? Of hearing the word of Yah. You know, and that was, again, as a result of us being disobedient as a people. So we understand what happened. After a period of time, you know, the Creator said that that would be enough. And we had to go through a period of time where we wouldn't be able to access, you know, and our people forgot that along the way. So I want to continue. From the Ghan tribe, we have one of our sisters who is there in Accra, Sister Sharifa. She's just recently been inducted to the Ghan tribe as a queen mother, all right? So that's a position of royalty in the Ghan tribe, a queen mother. It's almost on the level with the chiefs from a female standpoint, but actually they use the term chiefs, but we know that it was the Europeans that gave them that terminology to refer to our royalty, that our royalty were actually kings and queens. You know, in the Cape Coast area where I'm located and where our project is being developed there between the two slave dungeons that I mentioned earlier, the paramount chief in that particular area, his name is Osaberima Nana Kwesi Atta II, and he's been our guest to Israel in 2016, and is a very close, you know, associate of the kingdom. And then you can see him there in his royalty during the festival they have there called their Fashion. And also in Ghana, you have the Igbo tribe, all right? But they originate from Nigeria. But when you talk to them, they will tell you also that they have a history going back to ancient Israel. And in fact, you can see the pictures there where we visited with them at his palace in Accra. There's over 1 million of them there in Ghana. And then you can see down at the bottom where he also came to visit us at our resort in Cape Coast. And you see Prince Gabriel there, greet him along with myself and his entourage of about 20 that came to visit us that day. All right? And then you see the Ashanti Henny, which is the paramount chief of the Ashanti tribe. All right? I've talked to officials from the Ashanti tribe as well, and they also say that they come from Israel. Okay? And if you read Hebrewisms of West Africa, you know, if you read God, the Black Man in Truth, you read in there, you know, also that the account is explained how they also were ancient Israelites that migrated westward in Eden. But I'm showing you this, right, so that we can begin to see ourselves again as royalty and in royalty as it has existed for centuries on the continent. Because what happens, again, we, having gone through so many traumatic experiences, tend to forget, and we get it twisted, all right? We don't begin to see ourselves as royalty, and we begin to see others as royalty, as you see, you know, some of our people doing at times in other places. And I just tuned into a video, okay, of a young youth, a Ghanaian youth, and there were certain officials that had visited Ghana from the UK. And the way that they treated them as royalty and way that our royalty there bowed down and humbled themselves to that royalty that came to Ghana. And then the youth, the young son, said that when our royalty goes to those places, do those royals bow down to ours like that? Do they roll out the red carpet for our royalty like that when they travel to Europe?
Did you see them carrying African leadership up on their shoulders?
Do you ever see that? You don't see that. So we have to begin again to continue to see ourselves as who we are. Because again, through trauma, these things you know here in America that it's very difficult at times for us with all the things that we've gone through and that we go through on a regular basis for us to see ourselves as we really, really are. Right. All right? In Ghana, those of you who don't know, I'm sure many of you do, received its independence during the latter part of the 1950s. It was the first nation, you know, in Africa to actually receive its independence from the colonial powers of Europe, okay? It's been a leader in Pan-Africanism. It's been inspired by leaders such as Marcus Garvey, the leaders that founded the country in its independence were heavily inspired after having spent time in America, seeing the liberation struggle of our people here. And certainly we know Marcus Garvey and his organization, the UNAIA, as they had, you know, planned to begin to take our people back to the continent in large numbers, purchased the two ships known as the Black Star Line, and which was also the inspiration for the black star that you see in the center of the Ghanaian national flag. The founding father, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the first president during the independence struggle, right? and as Ghana received its independence, was first a student here in America, okay? And he was here during the time that we were going through a lot of the struggles as a people to be recognized as people with human rights, equal rights, okay? And that began to awaken him to our plight around the world, and also gave him the opportunity to put it into context as he went back home and began to fight for the liberation of Ghana. And after doing so, he continued, as president, to continue to promote Pan-Africanism there. And most of you know that after Ghana gained its independence, he went on to say that, it's not enough just for Ghana to have its independence when all the rest of Africa is still under colonization. So he pushed, and his idea was to form the OAU along with other great leaders there on the continent, the Organization of African Unification, and later went on to influence the AU, which we know is in existence today. All right? But that Pan-African spirit, Ghana has championed the spirit of Kwame Nkrumah, and it's continued to pride itself as a nation that wants to be and continue to be in the forefront of Pan-Africanism. Also, during that particular time, there were many who were prominent leaders during the civil rights struggle here in America who were taking pride in what was taking place in Ghana, who began to travel and visit, Ghana, because this new independent African nation. And many of them did, and some did also relocate. As we know, W.E.B. Du Bois, Dr. King, his wife, Muhammad Ali, okay, Maya Angelou, as well as we know that Rita Marley, she moved there in recent years. While in America, there was still a strong cry, right, for freedom by our people who were still undergoing, the civil rights struggle and that kind of thing. And for us, we know how that was in terms of that struggle. Around that particular same season, I want to put it in context with the kingdom. In the 60s, 1966, our anointed spiritual leader from the African Hebrew Israelites had a vision from the angel Gabriel, and the vision inspired him at that time that we, the African in America, were really those who were descendants of the biblical Hebrew Israelites, and that it was time for us to begin the journey back home, right, to the Holy Land via Liberia, West Africa. Around that season, a year later, 400 or something souls left the ghettos of America and went into the wilderness of Liberia. Stayed there for 2.5 years. As well as during that time, in that season, during the civil rights struggle, there were those who were working here in the United States to what? Prevent the rise of a Messiah who would unify and electrify the black nationalist movements here in America. And in fact, there were things that were done to make sure that that didn't happen, all right? And unfortunately, one of our great leaders of America, as we know, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., around that time, that season, he had a dream, he had a vision, a mountaintop experience where he said that we as a people would get to the promised land, and that he'd been to the mountaintop, right? This was in April of 1968. And unfortunately, from the time he made that speech in Memphis, Tennessee, it wasn't 24 hours before he was assassinated. And those of you who know our history in the kingdom, that vision that he received coincided with the movement of our people out of Liberia, okay? 1 month later, as we go to May 1968, the very first of our community that was there in Liberia, along in company with Ben Ami, entered into the land. That's Nasik Keskiahu, all right? 1968, entered into the land of Israel, fulfilling that vision that Dr. Martin Luther King had saw. 1970, just 2 years later, well, actually 1969, let's go back. After Nasi Keskiyahu entered into the land, about a year later, there were almost 100 souls, a little over 100 souls that also entered into the land. The early pioneers of the African Hebrew Israelite community that would enter into the land of Israel after Nasi Keskiyahu entered into the land. This is 1969, okay, 50 years ago. And those of us in the kingdom know that we've been celebrating the 50-year celebration of our Exodus, which took place in 1967, and also our great scout entering into the land, 1968. This year will be the great celebration in Israel during the season of May, where we'll celebrate the pioneers that went into Israel, 50 years, okay? But the Kingdom of Yah established in 1970 on Yom Kippur. After that, number of us entered into the land, the pioneers, in 1969. Another bit of history of the kingdom. Not 10 years after we entered into the land, and not even 10 years after the Kingdom of Yah was officially established, Ben Ami began to send those on a missionary and redemptive mission to Ghana. So we have our great prince, Nasik Akiezer, and also at that time, Sar, Minister Nasik Ram, who is now the great southern prince of the kingdom, Nasik Ram. We had them entering into the land in 1976, okay? And when they entered into the land of Ghana, they were charged to go on a mission to establish institutions of education and information sharing. And that's what they did. Also around that time, a couple of years later, you all know the history of Ghana. There was a military coup, 1979, and at that time, the military leader who began to take lead in Ghana was J.J. Rawlings, John Jerry Rawlings, okay? A very young military commander in the Ghanaian army at that time that headed up the coup, all right, that took control of the Ghana government in 1979. These are things that are happening in close proximity when you compare the history of the kingdom and what's taking place in Ghana. And Rawlings brought on a lot of innovative, policies to the country of Ghana. And again, Ghana has began to develop as a mecca for black people. And as you saw, after its independence, that was the interest, and it's continued to be an interesting place of relocation, to visit, to invest for black people, Ghana. Since 1992, the Pan-African Festival has been celebrated in Ghana, okay? And that particular festival has been ongoing ever since. They normally have it every other year, biannually, and this particular year, because of the year of return, they're planning for it to be very huge and very big. And in fact, there's going to be a great involvement by the kingdom in the Panafest this year. And now, in addition to Panafest, which comes in every other year around the season of the 7th month, going into the 8th month, that's July into August, they've also began celebrating Emancipation Day as a part of the Panafest celebration. And Emancipation Day was inspired when John Jerry Rawlings, who we just saw, actually had the opportunity, as he was a president of Ghana, visit the Caribbean islands. And when he went there, he visited and he saw that they were celebrating Carnival and their celebration of emancipation there in the islands. And he said, this is something that we need to do in Ghana. So he then established Emancipation Day celebration for Ghana. And in 1998, that's when it began. And these are a few of his words as he spoke about Emancipation Day. Sorry.
Country has a moral right, or should consider it ethical, to shut the door to any black African in the diaspora.
No country.
There's one truth that has to be told. Repatriation is to be of benefit to the continent.
I am saying that without the skills, right, and whatever little investment you can bring in, you will only be compounding the poverty of that continent. And this is why I think it's important that you equip yourself with the necessary skill, the necessary technology.
He was talking about coming back with skills and not coming back empty-handed. But certainly, he was admonishing the family that's out here in the diaspora to come home. This is from the Ministry of the Future, who has also participated in the Emancipation Day celebration and has established a festival called The Right to Return. This is activity right here that you see of the first Emancipation Day celebration and the dignitaries that came in during that time, Rita Marley. And during that time of the celebration, there was a site in the central region called Asin Manso. You'll see it here in a second. Right here you see two historic graves that are at the site of Asin Manso. And just to give you a little background on them, you see there's a queen mother that came from Jamaica who was involved with this Emancipation Day celebration being established. And part of what Ghana did and what Rawlings did was, in honor of those of us who were taken in the diaspora, they arranged for the remains of two of our ancestors to be brought back during the Emancipation Day celebration. And they were relocated there at this historic site of Asin Manso. And Asin Manso is also a very strategic place in our history when we look at the slave trade, what took place. As our forefathers were being brought from the interior of the continent down to the coast to be sold into slavery, those that were taken to the Armenian Cape Coast slave dungeons, they all passed through this particular spot. There's a river where they took their last bath before they moved them on to those fortifications. But the two remains of our ancestors here, one of them was a young daughter. She was about 12, and she was from the Caribbean islands, Jamaica, where the Queen Mother is from, that you see here, Nana Essie-Boer II. She was instrumental in helping bring this ancestor to the continent. Again, she was a young, small daughter in the Caribbean islands. The other one was an elderly African-American gentleman whose name was Carson, and he was brought. They were both granted honorary citizenship. And this is the site where they've done that. So this is the river where they took the last bath. So, again, Emancipation Day has been celebrated now along with Panifest. Also, around the year 2007, Ghana initiated what they call the Joseph Project. And this was on the occasion of Ghana's 50th anniversary of independence. And it was launched to encourage descendants of the slave trade to return home. Okay? And it was, again, just to reinforce what President Jerry Rawlings had already started. As well as around the time that Emancipation Day and Jerry Rawlings was initiating that for Ghana, they also passed an important bill that was called the Right of Abode, and we'll talk about that later. But they passed that also around the year 2000. So again, what you see is you see Ghana really taking to heart the whole idea of its long-lost sons and daughters returning back home. So again, that was 2007. Also around that time, the kingdom, we're also on the ground there again in Ghana. And one of the major things that we were doing at that particular time was working with the Ghana Ministry of Health. And those of you who are familiar with it, with the former minister Kwashige, you know that he traveled to Israel and was able to see the lifestyle that we have there and how healthy the members of the community were. And so he was so inspired that he wanted something to be done in his country, Ghana. So we were able to establish through our nonprofit organization, the African Hebrew Development Agency, the Regenerative Health and Nutrition Program. And there were several members of our community here in D.C. that were part of that team. I remember Roia was also there when I arrived in Ghana, and I was able to actually see them at work. And the work they were doing there was phenomenal. As you can see the pictures there, they impacted the country in a very, very powerful way. And just so you know, that particular program is still being utilized, and it influences the Ministry of Health there today and the health program that Ghana has going for the country today. In Cape Coast, we have a health and wellness center that we are developing, and we really have an excellent plan for what we want to do there. And as we talked before about the programs that we are developing, one of the things that we want to address at the resort is the trauma that our people are going through and that we have gone through. You know, but we also have a number of services that we deal with. We deal with herbology and herbal treatments. We have naturopathic services there. We also have a travel agency that we're developing because we want people to come and partake of as they come to Ghana for cultural tourism or the history, that they also come, as they pass through those slave dungeons, that they come to visit us as well. So part of the plan for the resort is the development of a museum site. Many of you know about the African Edenic Heritage Museum that we have developed as a concept. We want to take that concept and begin to join African history as well as African American history in one location, but then again begin to share the prophetic nature of why this experience we've undergone it. Because we know that in terms of the ultimate healing for our people, as a result of what's happened to us, can only come by way of truth. It has to be truth-centered. And if we don't have the true perspective on our history, there's no way that we can be fully healed. So we know that this is going to be an important development for our project there. You know, at one point we were admonished to consider, why is it that we were put in that particular location for a health project, you know, to develop a health center? But that location right there, as we talked about, the concentration of what happened to us in slavery being undertaken right there at that location, it has to be very key and instrumental in our healing as well. And so part of that has to be the whole education that has to go in and the understanding, and we are looking to pull our people, the Ghan, the Ewe, the Ashanti, all of them in so that the history that connects them also to Israel can begin to tell the true story of us as a people. in Sogokope, which is in the Volta region, we have our development project called the Restoration Village, which is going to be highlighting a return back to the African village concept of development. And it has been designated as an agricultural development site, as well as there'll be other aspects, but it's primarily rooted in agriculture. And you see that we're planting different things there in the top left-hand corner. You see moringa. You see them laying the beds. You see them planting plantain trees there. And in the bottom left-hand corner, you see our director of the Ministry of Divine Agriculture. That's Nasik Yadiel there, and he'll tell you all that we're doing there.
Banana plantation, a plantain plantation, moringa trees.
And since these photos were taken, it's grown?
Yeah, it's been growing. I think these were taken a few weeks back. That's a water pump that's pumping from the Volta River into the 117 acres that we have there. Okay, but they're planting thousands of trees there and plants that will be utilized very soon in the near future to help bring in income for the project.
It's all organic?
It's all organic. Yeah, Toda reminded me about that. And also, in the Volta region, we're developing a project to build schools for the community there, as well as in Liberia. And this, you see a photo of our leadership, and you see the great Prince here, and Minister Malak out of Houston, and several of the saints. You can see my wife here. She was part of the delegation, and she was also the voice in the video. And you see Atara Shemaiah there, and many of the community members. You see Atara Yoila and Rofati Latia. All of them were there recently, okay, in Liberia and Ghana. And the project to develop 2 schools for those village communities is underway. It's moving forward, and it will be underway soon. So you'll hear more about that in the upcoming future. Also, in Ghana, we have a factory that's producing plant-based food products, and you can see pictures of our tofu and veggie meat alternatives there. You see packages of kebabs, and you see our sister here as we display them at different events around the country, different events where we're actually able to expose the people to the plant-based diet, you know, which we know is going to be very instrumental in helping our people improve their health. Right. Yes. Also, in Accra, one of our Crown brothers, Artur Navoniel has a restaurant that he's established in one location at a mall called Mahogany, where they also serve the plant-based food items that we produce. Some of them we produce from our factory. And you see our Crown sister, Atara Rafaya, and she's actually there helping them put things together, and she's developed a delicious menu of different delights that the people are really enjoying on a day-to-day basis there in Accra, 2 locations that they're developing. You see one of our other sisters who's actually from Ghana, Ako Ahalea, and she's presently out of Atlanta working, but she's in California, I think, on a project, but she's from the Fanti tribe, right. Okay? And she's become a vegan chef, influenced by the lifestyle of the kingdom, and she's become one of the top vegan chefs for celebrities all across the country. She recently traveled to Ghana, and she was featured in one of the magazines there in Ghana. She also in the top right-hand corner, you see her shaking hands with the ambassador, Dr. Erica Bennett, who's also been to the community in Dimona on many occasions. She's now the diaspora ambassador for the diaspora community for the AU. But you see our sister there shaking hands with the president's wife of Ghana, the current president's wife of Ghana. She also has, while she was there, hosted the great actor Lou Gossett Jr., who was also hosted by, and you see this circular, this oval-shaped image there, the Minister of Tourism of Ghana right now. So I want to go to 2013 when our anointed spiritual leader, Ben Ami, visited Ghana and share with you what he said about Ghana then.
But when you look at what is happening now, based on what you have said, do you have hope for this people of God? Do you have hope?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, Paul, we are now, and I take this opportunity to say this, that Ghana has been chosen.
Ghana has been chosen?
Ghana has been chosen by God.
By God?
Ghana has been chosen by God to lift up the light of restoration of African glory for all of the African nations. Ghana has been chosen by God to lift up that light of restoration for all of the African nations. You know, so
how do you know that, Abba?
I know that because I've come down from Jerusalem to bring a message unto our people here in Ghana, that Ghana has been chosen. Remember that Kwame Nkrumah, in the beginning of his ministry, he was called Osagyefo.
Yes.
And Osagyefo means what? It means Messiah or deliverer. That means that he had an idea, a spiritual idea. He had a spiritual idea that he wanted to apply. And this is where we are at this time. Ghana is the country that has been chosen. First country to achieve independence, and now for a greater level of independence. Ghana now will have to take her place. And I know that putting this chore, this upon Ghanaians at this time will be hard to accept. But at some point, that a message will come from Jerusalem to African people, to Ghanaian people. It says, and the law shall go forth from Zion, and the word of God from Jerusalem. So, and this is where we are now. The hope, absolutely, because I feel that Ghanaians will rise to the challenge. And what that means is that we're going to have to modify our lifestyles, that we're going to have to go back now and seek truth. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. But the ruler at that time, Pontius Pilate, in Jerusalem, Pontius Pilate posed the question, he said, what is truth? Yet he thought that truth was something you could go out and buy like a commodity. But when Yeshua said, ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free, what is this truth that he was referred to that had the only power, because he referred to a freedom? Have we achieved the freedom that will be brought to us that he was referring to, that we could attain by way of truth? Absolutely not. In the 61st chapter of Isaiah, we find that Yah has anointed, an anointed personage, he said, to bring good tidings unto the meek, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives. So now we're talking about another freedom. But right today, the brokenhearted, has their hearts been bound up? Liberty to the captives, that all of these things have not been achieved. Why? Because the freedom that has been promised by the prophets cannot be given to us by way of a political system. The freedom that has been promised by the prophets can only come unto us as we once again come allow ourselves to be governed by truth. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. What is truth?
So this was 2013, and our father Ben Ami was talking about the prophetic role that Ghana was going to play, in the redemption of our people, the restoration of our people on the continent, and as he spoke about that, at that time, many of us had no idea the things that would be unfolding as we look today, and Ghana has declared it the year of return. At that time, Ghana granting citizenship to us, because for years, those that have been there on the ground, there were those from the diaspora community that have been there fighting to get citizenship for decades. You know, we're still in that struggle and didn't know how it was going to unfold. Many had become frustrated, you know, with the process. And so we didn't understand and know what was going to take place, you know, in terms of what happened in 2016 when Ghana finally gave us citizenship. And again, they take the lead in terms of Pan-Africanism when they do that in 2016. You know, the former president, John Dramani Mahama, was the one who was the sitting president at that time as he was going out of his term. This was a historic act that he did by granting the citizenship to 34 of us of African and Caribbean descent. They're living in Ghana. So I'll play a few of the testimonies and words that were shared during that particular ceremony. You hear the president, his executive secretary.
Welcome back. Now, 34 Africans from the diaspora have been granted Ghanaian citizenship Wednesday in Accra at a ceremony attended by President John Mahama, with a call on them to abide by the laws of Ghana and defend the country at all times. Many diasporans have yearned to return to the motherland, to reconnect with the land of their ancestors and assist in the development of the continent. Well, today at the Dubois Center, it was an emotional period for 34 of them, some of whom hailed from the US and UK.
Then there will be a statement of thanks by Master Teacher Mulana. Mulana, get up and let's acknowledge you. Mulana and I.
That's the Honorable Ni Kwesi Kwate, and he is now the deputy chair of the AU, who's doing the officiating of the program there and introducing Dr. Maulana to come up and speak.
By Master Teacher Mulana. Mulana, get up and let's acknowledge you. Mulana and I have done a lot of conceptual and intellectual work on this matter, and if we are here today, we have to thank him for his work and his intellectual capability. Minister of the Future. Mulana, we salute you. Cameraman, please seated. We are about to get to the high point of the ceremony, where we invite His Excellency, my boss, to say a few words to us. But before then, I'd like to invite Master Teacher Mulana to pay homage to him. Master Teacher Mulana, please come up and pay homage. Yes.
Again, it was his organization, the Ministry of the Future, that was spearheading this occasion where the citizenship was finally granted.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama, I speak on behalf of the African Diaspora community to thank you. Words are not enough, but this act that you are doing for the African Diaspora community, it is not only making history. President John Dramani Mahama, you are making prophecy. You are in prophecy. If anybody has any doubt, go to your Bible and look at Genesis chapter 15, verses 13 and 14. Genesis chapter 15, verses 13 and 14. You will know that today is a day of prophecy. Go to Psalms 68:31, and it says, princes shall come out of Egypt. Ethiopia shall lift up their hands to God. We are making prophecy today. Go to Matthews and look at chapter 21:42, and it says the builders tried to build a house. The African Union has tried to build a house, but they rejected the cornerstone. And the cornerstone are the children of the diaspora. This house cannot be built without the diaspora here. We are the center cornerstone of Africa. Please understand that, Your Excellency.
Greetings, fellow Ghanaians. Let me say how really proud I am to witness this moment. In my time as President of the Republic of Ghana, I have signed the instruments to grant Ghanaian citizenship to people of many nationalities. I have never personally attended the swearing in of those citizens. It's often done by the Minister of Interior. But I thought it good to be here today for the swearing in and conferment of citizenship on our brothers and sisters from the Caribbean who are only coming back home and taking what is rightfully theirs. So let me say, this is the first ceremony, such ceremony I'm attending, and I do it in honor of our brothers and sisters who today are being given Ghanaian citizenship. The slave trade still remains the most evil act ever perpetrated by humans on other humans. Nothing in the history of mankind beats the evilness of the slave trade. We all are reminded when we see the symbols of the dotted along the coast of Africa, and especially along the coast of Ghana. Ghana has the most slave forts than any other country in Africa. And so it means that Ghana was an important exit route for most of our brothers and sisters who ended up in the diaspora as slaves. When you stand at the Cape Coast Castle or the Elmina Castle, and you stand in that archway that we call the door of no return, and you walk through the dungeons of these forts and castles, no sense of human imagination can capture the reality of the horror that took place in these forts and castles. Families separated from each other forever. The Atlantic Ocean was a huge chasm that divided the African continent from the New World, the so-called New World. And indeed, once you walk through that door, there was no possibility of return at the time. Today, we are here to turn that door of no return into a door of return. And I said I have the honor and privilege to restore to you your full rights as Ghanaian and African citizens. Let me say, in doing this, I deserve no thanks or praise because I'm giving back to you what rightfully belonged to you. And in doing this, I'm just following in the footsteps of our fathers, Dr. Nkrumah, Padmore, Marcus Garvey, Du Bois, Martin Luther King, and all of them. And so Ghana has continued to be that beacon that promotes Pan-Africanism. And so, in signing these instruments of citizenship, I'm just following in the footsteps of what the founder of our nation began, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Our brothers and sisters who live in the diaspora have acquired skills that are useful to the motherland. And so by allowing you to come and go freely, and even to reside, you bring back those skills to the motherland and help us to develop our continent. so let me congratulate those of you who are receiving citizenship today. I believe you're not going to be the last. This should be the first.
Again, so Ghana taking the lead, and part of this was being inspired by the initiatives that were given to the AU member states to begin to put policies in place that would address the condition of the diaspora, which they have now made a part of the AU 6 region. So this was part of why Ghana wanted to make a move that was significant for the diaspora community, and they took the lead by granting the citizenship. So this is a picture that the 34 of us that took that received the citizenship there. And as a part of it, the citizenship that we received, it bypassed all of the normal requirements that you have to undergo to get citizenship. You have to have a visa to come into the country. You have to apply for the right of abode and residency. You have to be in the country for about 7 to 8 years without leaving, you know, under the residency process to get citizenship. And even to get the right of abode, the president has to sign off on it. And then to get citizenship, also the president has to sign off on that as well. So as you heard Muhammad say that he signed many people the right to citizenship, but that was the first time that he actually attended the ceremony of anyone that he had granted citizenship during his term. But you see the last bullet there, it talks about the Diasporan Citizenship Initiative and the acronym HUG attached to it, because this initiative that the diaspora community is undertaking now, since the first 34 got citizenship, is one where we're endeavoring to make sure the door that he talked about of no return becomes a door of return is open wider for the rest of the diaspora family and our brothers and sisters who have not received citizenship. So that HUG stands for Historically Unique Group, because we're trying to make sure that a policy is put in place that'll be different from, you know, the normal individuals who don't have the history of being taken from our motherland, okay, as we do. We wouldn't have to go through that same process if we are recognized by the government as a historically unique group. So that's what's being pushed for. So we wouldn't have to pay large sums of money. You know, you have to pay close to 6,000 CDs to get citizenship now. You have to learn the language, be able to speak one of the languages. So we're trying to see, if we can be recognized as having gone through special circumstances that should be considered. But the holdup at this time really is because there has to be legal framework put in place that would address that properly, so that all of us who come in from this point will have a legal policy that's firm, that can be followed from here on out. And they are in the process of putting that together. And even at that particular ceremony, it was supposed to be attended by the current president, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. He's the president now, who's been in for almost 2 years now. And he was supposed to actually attend the ceremony, but there were some things that came up he wasn't able to, but it was shared with us that he is in full support of what was taking place in terms of granting the citizenship. And since he's been in office, he has actually shown that to be where his heart is, and he's established a office in the president's office that's completely dedicated to the affairs of the diaspora community. This is the director, Dr. Ababio Akwesi Aua Ababio, and we've met him on several occasions. The African Hebrew Israelite community is a part of some of the organizations of the diaspora community, which have engaged this office on many occasions to, again, work this process out for us to get citizenship there. More of us. This is one of the meetings where you can see him to the far right side, you know, listening to all of our concerns. And also they have a legal staff that works closely with him and the Ministry of Interior and Immigration. And what happens is that they take all of our concerns and they take that back to the table and are working on putting together a program that actually works for us. Some of the diaspora organizations that are there, and there were many of these members that were sitting there, of course, is again the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem, the African American Association of Ghana, Bureau of African Diaspora Affairs, Caribbean Association of Ghana. The Diaspora Coalition is the umbrella group that's been organized to actually represent the different organizations from the diaspora community that are there. The Diaspora African Forum, that particular organization represents us on the AU level, okay? And then again, Ministry of the Future and FIANCRA. So 2018, you know, the current president signed into law the bill 1242, and it read that this bill establishes 400 years of African American history commission to develop and carry out activities throughout the United States to commemorate the 400th anniversary of the arrival of Africans in the English colonies at Point Comfort, Virginia in 1916. So this is the bill that triggered what we're talking about, the year of return. So then last year in October, the president came out and announced the launching of the year of return. And that's what's created a lot of excitement about those in the diaspora community here throughout the states, interested in coming to see what all this means, as he in his term has declared it the year of return. And they put in a lot of programs in place and a lot of activities. And we're going to hear his words as he talks about
our people. We're gathered to initiate the year of commemoration of one of the most momentous events of history, the commencement of the transatlantic trade, slave trade, which brought tens of millions of Africans to the Americas, North, Central, and South. We know of the horrors that accompanied that forced journey. We know of the brutalities that were meted out to them during their stay in the Americas. We know of the great difficulties they have encountered in attempting to assimilate and live and maintain their dignity in the Americas. We know of the extraordinary achievements and contributions they have made to the life of the Americas. It is important that in this symbolic year, 400 years later, we commemorate their existence and their sacrifices. It was in anticipation of the year of commemoration that my great childhood friend, colleague, and associate, the late Jake Otanka Obecha Bilemti, then Minister of Tourism in President John Ajekum Kufuor's government, a government of which I was part as Foreign Minister, launched in celebration of Ghana's Golden Jubilee, the Joseph Project. The project that identified the need to symbolize the return of the prodigal son who was lost and found. I would like to dedicate this whole ceremony and this to his memory. He insisted on granting easy visas to all returnees, and that we should give force to the right of abode. I think it's the duty of my government to do both of those things and commemorate the next year. But I would like to say in conclusion that the most important consequences of all the activity we're here to initiate is that together on both sides of the Atlantic, We will work together to make sure that never again will we allow a handful of people with superior technology to walk into Africa, seize our peoples, and sell them into slavery. That must be our resolution, but never again. Never again. Thank you.
So as you can see, Ghana has a heart for its long-lost family, sons and daughters, to come back home. You know, and they know the experience, and they share the experience with us. And so, you know, and you heard the former president, Mahama, say that he doesn't deserve any special credit. He's only doing what rightfully should be done for all of us in terms of giving the citizenship. So some of the government agencies that we're working with, again, the Office of Diaspora Affairs that the president has there, we've been working with. Now we just came from an appointment with the Ghanaian embassy here in D.C., and they understand that, you know, there's a great push by the government now to engage the diaspora community. We were able to go in there, myself and our tour occupier, my Isha, had a chance to actually meet with them, and we're going to be able to begin working with them closely here on this side as well. We notified them that we would possibly be in New York, and so they said that by all means go ahead and work to get an appointment so you can go and see we can see them as well, and as well as the embassy in Tel Aviv, Israel, working with them. Ghana Immigration Services, they set up a special office there at Ghana Immigration Services for the diaspora community. So any of us that have special issues now with immigration, you have a special office that you can go to for, you know, any assistance that you might need from the Office of Immigration now. The Ministry of Interior, they're working right now to process it's probably close to 300 applications now of those that have applied for citizenship since we got it in 2016. And they're there now with the Ministry of Interior, and one of the things that was shared with us from the Office of Diaspora Affairs is that the president is assuring us that before the end of his term, there'll be some significant moves made for the diaspora community. And so we believe that the citizenship will be granted to many of those who have the applications in with the Ministry of Interior at this time. Also working closely with Ghana Tourism, Culture and Creative Arts, the Ghana Tourism Authority, and there in Cape Coast, we're also working with the Chamber of Commerce and the Municipal Assembly. And I know many of you may have heard that
the Full Circle Festival was established to honor Ghanaian ancestors by celebrating their heritage and generational legacy. The festival was hosted by Boris Kujo, an Austrian-born actor of German and Ghanaian descent, along with a number of other celebrities from Hollywood.
The Full Circle Festival is my way of creating a narrative that will help people understand how incredible this country is and how proud we are as Ghanaians, and for people all over the world to visit and to experience it.
We brought over 100 guests.
They shared their excitement with the news team. They further indicated their readiness to promote the country on the international market.
Thanks to the genealogical study, 23andMe, I found out the majority of my heritage is from Ghana. And so it's great to be able to come back home, so to speak.
It feels great to be home. You know, this is my second trip to Ghana, you know, to see and experience everything that they have to offer, but to be here, you know, for Full Circle, you know, in commemoration of the start of the slave trade next year, and just, you know, to bring people back home, bring people back to this country to celebrate the people and the culture.
I'm a corporate executive who's in boardrooms, but also in press, and I constantly talk about Ghana. I wear Ghanaian clothes, I eat Ghanaian food, I use Ghanaian phrases. So for me, it's not there's no separation. It's not as if I'm an executive and then sometimes Ghanaian. I'm always Ghanaian.
I just wish that we all can connect, find citizenship here, find home here, culture here, nationality here, and as I say, be an African in America, but still rooted in Africa.
The event hosted stars such as Anthony Anderson, Buzuma St. John, Yvonne Orji, Michael Jai White, American model reality television star and actress Cynthia Bailey, real estate mogul Jay Morrison, Fox Sports host Mike Hill, radio host Ebro Darden, and many more. The Minister for Tourism, Arts and Culture, Catherine Afeku, stated that the focal point of this festival is to harness the culture by projecting Ghana to the diaspora.
You have an Anderson who's so major globally that will do. Just mentioning Ghana, that he visited Ghana on Blackish, is a big deal. For tourism, for our sector, this is priceless. So we're very excited that we work day and night to make this happen, and we're hoping that it will blossom. Like Chalawote, it will be a full circle festival annually, and you see more of our kings, our sons and daughters coming home.
Some highlights of the tour included the Black Star Square, the Arts Centre, Afrochella, Cape Coast Castle, Royal Senchi, and Kakum National Park.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so he brought over 100 guests there, and you can hear the Minister of Tourism encouraging him that they hope that it becomes an annual festival that they do. But many of the festivals that the diaspora community has done have become annual observances by the Ghana Tourism Authority and the Ministry of Tourism now in the government. And if you know what happens there on the continent, traditionally, the different ethnic groups that are there, you have the Gan, the Ewe, the Shanti, they all have their annual festivals that they observe different times of the year. And now they're welcoming us as a diaspora community to come and establish our festivals there in the land as well. So this is one, is the Full Circle Festival, like we talked about with Panifest and other ones. But let's hear a little bit more.
Once again, Akwaba, it's not just about a physical journey, it's a spiritual journey. Our time has come. Our ancestors, many of them had to go to their graves in this very Atlantic Ocean that you crossed in that airplane. Many of them suffered and died, but with a hope that a generation would survive that would be you and I.
So Full Circle Festival is also about taking part in that journey and taking ownership, being accountable, being responsible for our assets and for our power and for our IP and for our resources.
Malcolm X does not die. Marcus Garvey does not die. Martin Luther King does not die. Kwame Nkrumah does not die when we live their vision and their dream. That's you and I. Granny Lou Hammer, Harriet Tubman, Yah Santua, they live, and you and I. We are them, and they are us.
All right, my heart beating fast. My first steps on African soil.
Jay Anderson.
Oh shit! Yo, motherland, mother man. That's right. I'm happy. Oh, African dirt. Oh, African dirt. Oh man, Ghana, Africa. Oh. I've been waiting for this day my whole entire life.
When they arrived at
my whole life, all of it, with my queen. Yeah, with no. Oh man, I'm here with an amazing group of people. How are you? How are you, King? Yeah, no. Africa, we made it! I'm back home for the first time. I'm so happy.
Who has melanin in their skin. You belong here. This is your home. And so we welcome you back. We hope that when you go home to the new home, because this is home, that you're able to take away a message that will also inspire others and that they will make the trip home. So cheers. Here's to you.
Cheers.
He was installed as a chief for one of the communities there in Ghana.
Amazing feeling. It's nothing more electric than you walk around and everyone you see looks like you. Where to be in a space where you're the majority and not the minority, right? Not living in a world where you're the minority. It's something different. It releases chains and shackles off you. You believe anything is possible. Where all the presidents are black. Not just one black president, but all the presidents are black. Where the first president, President Kwame Nkrumah, I believe, he started the Ghanaian independence with British, and he pulled Ghana away from the British as their colonizers and gave them independence. And to watch all the presidents since then, and it's just a beautiful thing to see. Our greatness and our excellence right in front of you. Not like in a little Black History book, not in a Black History Month. I'm talking about every day out here is Black History Month.
See how excited the brother was to be home? I just think it's so beautiful to see how excited they were just to touch home. And, you know, many of us share that same feeling from when we first, you know, were able to get back, you know, and so, you know, I thought I'd share that with you. As well as you heard in the beginning, the brother who was talking at the first part, that was our brother Rabbi Kohen Netanya Levy. I think many of you might know him from here. He was instrumental in a portion of our history here from D.C. in the Kingdom, but he is also now instrumental in heading up the organizing of the Panifest Festival that goes on every other year. So he's the main one putting that together nowadays each year. This festival, Brother Diallo Sumbre, you know, and he's the CEO of the Edenic Group, and they have established the festival. They started this year, and they brought the first group, you know, as this festival has been established there to Ghana and visit in February. So I think they had over 100 visitors as well this year in Ghana. One of our sisters that we knew very well, she's out of Compton, California. Well, she had patronized our establishment, and we knew her very well. She's a naturopathic doctor. This is a festival, yes, Dr. Sharita. She's established a festival called the African Culture and Wellness Festival that takes place every year, and they just had their 5th edition of that festival, which also goes on in February every year, and that's in the eastern region in the mountains of Ebri, just outside of Accra. And you can see she's had those such as Muda Baruka and Iris Latham there who have participated in that wellness festival that she does. Some of the major events that's still remaining, the Back to Africa and the African Wellness Festival have already taken place. But in June, we have a Diaspora Homecoming and Investment Summit that'll be taking place in Accra. And they're encouraging those that are interested in investment into the country to come and participate in this particular event that'll be taking place in June. Panifest, again, that one's July, between July, the latter part of July, first week of August. And the Right to Return Pilgrimage Festival that again goes to Asim Manso, where we saw Slave River. That one will come up in December of this year. So taking a look at what it's all about, this whole year of return, and I bulleted a few points and want to touch on what it really, the substance of this year of return is, and how we should, look to consider what is the significance of it. And one, I would say, is that recognizing the spiritual significance of this being a first-time historical opportunity. And we know that with how this is unfolded, parallel to the prophecies that were given to our forefathers about this 400-year experience that we've gone through, that is certainly by divine providence. And as you saw, as Ben Ami, when he talked about what Ghana, the role that Ghana was going to play, we didn't at that time know all these things that are taking place now would be unfolding as they have. So certainly we know that it's more than just coincidence that all these things are happening. As well as, this is a chance for us to reconnect those who haven't, like in the past, reconnected with our African Edenic self-identity, to go back, because when we were taken on those ships across these waters, there was so much that we lost. Right. And having been there now for 9 years, and that's been a great blessing, the experience of being there for the 9 years that I've been there, going on 10, to really get a chance to see some of the things that we as a people have lost, culturally, from being taken into the slave trade. A deeper understanding of our predicament worldwide, reconciliation. We know that if we look at us as a people that connect to the Bible, all this happened for a reason. Right. We fell out of favor with our Maker. And this caused us to have to go into this experience of the captivity. And we know that in returning, it's not just a matter of just getting back up and returning like that for us, who know the spiritual significance of it. We know that if we don't return with the right spirit, we can go through this same process of being, dislocated again. So we want the reconciliation at this particular time to be at the forefront of our hearts about how do we, when we go back to that land, which is a highly spiritual place, those of us who've been to the continent, to know that for us to remain there, that we have to go there with good intentions. And as you heard the leaders talk about, when you come back with skills, you have to come back with the spirit of doing what's right, okay, and adding value. So the Exodus plan of the Creator, okay, if we go into the scriptures, we know that it admonishes us at a certain point in time that we're going to have to come out. Even the covenant that was made with Abraham, where he said, and after 400 years, they would have to, come out. But at the same time, you hear them, the leaders there, all admonishing us to come home. So is that just coincidental? It can't be just a coincidental. We have to see the connection that the come out and the come home is connected. All right? Reunification with our people. We've been separated all these years. And that separation, we know, has weakened us as a people as a whole on the continent, as well as us who were taken away. So the coming together again will be an idea of strengthening and unification. And that's something in the meetings that you saw us sitting with the Diaspora Affairs Office, the director that came in representation of the president, they've pushed, and that they've definitely told us that they're really excited for us to come back as a unified people, to bring that unity to the table that this all represents in terms of them welcoming us back. The healing and the wholeness that we as a people so need. Millions of us were taken into the slave trade. And those of us that can be delivered at this particular time, or who can return successfully, if it's one or two, that's a great blessing, because, again, this is about a healing and a wholeness for those that are able to do it. They're expecting about 500,000 of those of us from the diaspora to come and visit, at least over the course of this year, 2019. So again, there's a lot of potential, and we pray that as we continue to talk about the year of return, that more will be inspired to come. The restoration of our values, the restoration of our sense of identity, the restoration of our connection back with our people, all of these things. The understanding of why we went through this process, all of these things are the things that we realized that it was talking about when it said we would come out with great substance, And all of these things put together will represent another type of wealth that we as a people will have. And emancipation, in terms of emancipation, liberation, and freedom. You heard the brother when he landed in the airport and how free he felt being there, and that's why that testimony was so key, because being back there is nothing like it. It's a whole nother sense of freedom that you feel when you're back there at home on the continent. So again, go back and remember the Abrahamic covenant and the prophecy that's tied in, and we see how it's unfolded in the great news that we're sharing here today with you. And in closing, it coincides again with a prophetical reference, okay? A biblical reference. If we look at our history in the kingdom, again being established in 1970, and in 2020, it being 50 years that the kingdom would have been established. And when you go into the book of Leviticus, you read about what the significance of the 50-year period means to the children of Israel. And I just want to read on this wise, and it reads from verse 8 to 10. And thou shalt number 7 Sabbaths of years unto thee, 7 times 7 years, and the space of 7 Sabbaths of years shall be unto you 49. And then thou shalt cause the trumpets of Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month. In the day of atonement shall ye make the trumpet to sound through all your land. And ye shall hallow the 50th year, and proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. It shall be a jubilee unto you, and you shall return every man unto his possessions, and ye shall return every man unto his family. And again, as we look at this 50 years of the kingdom, and we look historically, knowing that not only us, but the Ghanaians have migrated from that part of the world where the Bible, history, takes place, that this is also something very significant, not only for us as the diaspora, but for them as well. So we are engaged on the ground there right now to invite all of our brothers and sisters of the tribes there to celebrate with us in Israel during the 50th year celebration of the Jubilee, as well as all of our brothers and sisters here in the diaspora to come and celebrate as a part of the celebrations of the Jubilee, this prophetic significance of the year of return. So thank you for your time and your focus and concentration, and pray that it's been a presentation that has been of great benefit and interest and enlightenment to you. Toda Rabah. Toda.
All right, well, if all hearts and minds are settled, we move to close out the presentation here. So if we all could rise and face the east, Jerusalem. Let's lift our hands to the heavens. Yo, Yahuwah. Yo, Yahuwah. Ain takat hashemam, shem aker, honeytown leaf ne adam, asher bo, never share. Ve'ain Yeshua akedet. Yo, Yahuwah. There is no other name under heaven given to the sons of Adam in which we can be saved, and there is no other salvation. Shuvah Yahuwah, Revivot Alfei Yisrael. Hallelujah.
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 Yokai. 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 Benamikai Banu. Hallelujah.
Okay, told up, man. This is my first time meeting